Violence in cities around the world is a reflection of deeper issues: poverty, corruption, political instability, and the legacies of war. Some cities have earned the notorious reputation of being the most dangerous places on earth due to the overwhelming levels of crime, gang violence, and terrorism. These cities, while known for their perilous conditions, also embody the resilience of their inhabitants, who continue to fight for a safer and more stable future. Here's an in-depth look at the top 10 most dangerous cities in the world, examining the factors behind their violence, their social struggles, and the ongoing efforts to bring about positive change. 1. Caracas, Venezuela, the collapse of society. Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, is one of the most dangerous cities due to the economic crisis, political corruption, and rampant violence. The city has experienced an explosion in violent crime as Venezuela's economy has collapsed. Factors behind the danger: the country's oil-based economy has plummeted, leaving millions in poverty. Shortages in food, medicine, and basic services have led to widespread unrest. Caracas has one of the highest homicide rates globally, with violent crime like armed robberies, kidnappings, and murders occurring daily. Gangs have proliferated, taking control of entire neighborhoods. What's being done? While the government has implemented some measures to reduce crime, they have been largely ineffective due to ongoing corruption and economic instability. NGOs and international organizations continue to provide humanitarian aid, but the road to safety is long and uncertain. 2. San Salvador, gang violence and poverty. San Salvador, the capital of El Salvador, struggles with one of the highest homicide rates in the world. Gang violence, primarily from the notorious MS-13 and Barrio 18, runs rampant in the city. Factors behind the danger: the civil war and subsequent instability in El Salvador created the fertile ground for gangs to grow. Gangs control various parts of the city, engaging in drug trafficking, extortion, and armed robbery. A lack of opportunities, poverty, and limited government presence in many areas fuel this violence. What's being done? Government crackdowns have targeted gang members, but violence has continued. Non-profit organizations work to provide youth with alternatives, like education and job training, hoping to reduce gang recruitment. However, true change requires a focus on social programs and systemic reforms to address the underlying poverty and inequality. 3. Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, favelas and corruption. Rio de Janeiro is known for its natural beauty but also faces significant violence stemming from the dominance of drug cartels and police corruption. The city's favelas are particularly dangerous areas where criminal activity runs rampant. Factors behind the danger: the favelas, or slums, are home to millions of people living in extreme poverty. Drug trafficking and gang activity are widespread, with criminal syndicates controlling neighborhoods. Police corruption and brutality have exacerbated the violence, as law enforcement is often complicit or unable to maintain order. What's being done? Programs to pacify the favelas and increase police presence have been implemented but with limited success. While community-driven initiatives provide education and job training, Rio must address inequality and corruption for real and lasting peace. 4. Baghdad, Iraq, terrorism and sectarian conflict. Baghdad, Iraq's capital, remains one of the most dangerous cities in the world due to terrorism, sectarian violence, and political instability. Despite efforts to stabilize the city, violence continues to disrupt daily life. Factors behind the danger: sectarian divisions between Sunni and Shia factions have led to fierce violence. ISIS has attacked the city repeatedly, targeting government institutions and civilians. The power vacuum left by the 2003 invasion exacerbated these divisions, while the ongoing weak governance and corruption have made it difficult to restore order. What's being done? Security efforts, including military operations and international support, have reduced some violence, but political instability and sectarian rifts continue to fuel insecurity. While rebuilding efforts have begun, progress is slow, and lasting peace is dependent on effective governance and reconciliation. 5. Kabul, Afghanistan, a city torn apart by war. Kabul, Afghanistan's capital, has experienced decades of violence, from Soviet occupation to US intervention and the Taliban's resurgence. The city is continuously under threat from insurgent groups like the Taliban and ISIS-Khorasan. Factors behind the danger. Kabul is a focal point for insurgency, with the Taliban targeting both civilians and government institutions. Suicide bombings and terrorist attacks are frequent, creating a sense of fear. The war's toll on infrastructure and the lack of a stable government have left the city vulnerable. What's being done? International humanitarian organizations continue to provide food, healthcare, and education. However, political instability under the Taliban has made rebuilding efforts difficult. Long-term peace in Kabul requires both international cooperation and internal reconciliation. 6. Cape Town, South Africa, gang warfare and poverty. Cape Town, known for its beautiful landscapes, also faces high levels of gang violence. The city's Cape Flats area, in particular, has become a hotspot for criminal syndicates involved in drug trade and violence. Factors behind the danger. Cape Town's violent crime is deeply connected to the legacy of apartheid and economic inequality. Gangs control vast areas of the city, making drug trafficking and extortion common. Police corruption and brutality worsen the problem, as law enforcement is often ineffective. What's being done? The government has implemented military and police crackdowns, but these measures have done little to alleviate the underlying social issues driving the violence. Community organizations focus on providing educational and employment opportunities to at-risk youth, but more systemic changes are necessary to break the cycle of crime. 7. Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of the Congo, political instability and armed groups. Kinshasa, the capital of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, faces political instability, widespread poverty, and armed militia activity. The lack of strong governance has contributed to the city's dangerous environment. Factors behind the danger. Armed militias and rebel groups operate freely in Kinshasa, vying for control over resources and power. The government is weak and often corrupt, leaving residents vulnerable to violence and exploitation. Kinshasa's rapid urbanization has also resulted in overcrowded neighborhoods with inadequate infrastructure. What's being done? International humanitarian organizations continue to provide assistance, focusing on healthcare, food security, and education. However, addressing the root causes of violence requires more than aid. It demands effective governance, political stability, and the dismantling of armed groups. 8. Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, gangs and poverty. Port Moresby, the capital of Papua New Guinea, is plagued by violent crime, gang activity, and ethnic tensions. Despite being the economic center of the country, Port Moresby suffers from widespread poverty and limited opportunities. Factors behind the danger. Rapid urbanization has created informal settlements where gang violence and territorial disputes are common. Ethnic tensions contribute to periodic clashes, and the absence of strong law enforcement allows criminals to flourish. What's being done? Police forces have been increased in key areas, and efforts to reduce gang activity through community programs have shown some success. However, long-term change requires addressing poverty, providing employment opportunities, and improving education and healthcare services. 9. Karachi, Pakistan, political and ethnic tensions. Karachi, Pakistan's largest city, is plagued by political and ethnic violence, coupled with organized crime. Despite being an economic powerhouse, Karachi suffers from severe insecurity. Factors behind the danger. Karachi's violence is fueled by ethnic tensions between Sindhi, Muhajir, and Pashtun populations. Political infighting and the influence of criminal gangs, involved in smuggling and extortion, contribute to the city's instability. Furthermore, terrorist attacks have also targeted the city in recent years. What's being done? Military operations and police crackdowns have been used to restore order, with some success. However, lasting peace requires addressing the root causes of ethnic conflict, poverty, and corruption. Initiatives to promote inter-ethnic dialogue and provide youth with alternatives to criminal activity are crucial. 10. Mogadishu, Somalia, the ravages of war and terrorism. Mogadishu, Somalia's capital, remains a city in turmoil due to its decades-long civil war and the ongoing threat of terrorism, particularly from al-Shabaab. Factors behind the danger. Mogadishu has endured decades of violence, starting with the collapse of the central government in 1991. The city is a frequent target for al-Shabaab, a militant Islamist group with ties to al-Qaeda. The group's attacks, ranging from bombings to assassinations, are common, keeping the population in a constant state of fear. What's being done? The African Union Mission in Somalia, AMISOM, has been involved in efforts to stabilize the city, but al-Shabaab remains a powerful force. Humanitarian organizations continue to provide aid, focusing on basic needs like food and medical care. Rebuilding the city requires long-term investment in infrastructure and a concerted effort to address the political and security challenges that persist. In the end, the cities highlighted in this list are plagued by a combination of violence, political instability, poverty, and crime. Despite the overwhelming challenges, these cities also reflect the resilience and strength of their inhabitants, who continue to strive for a better future. While efforts to address violence are ongoing, lasting change requires comprehensive solutions that tackle the root causes, including poverty, corruption, and lack of opportunities. The journey towards peace and stability is long, but with continued international support and local initiatives, there is hope for transformation in these dangerous urban environments.